grade. Today we're going to be doing Module 4, Lesson 7. And today's lesson is going to be very similar to yesterday's lesson, except instead of doing arrays to show our answers, we're going to be doing tape diagrams today to show our work. So let's go ahead and get started. Our first problem is going to be 3/5 of 35. Go ahead and follow along with me on this problem. So you learn how to do the tape diagrams, and then after that, we're going to be doing a bunch of word problems and some different types of problems for today. So for our first problem, what I'm going to do is I am going to draw a tape diagram. So I'm going to start off with just a rectangle, a bar, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to label this as 35. So this entire thing is worth 35, but what I'm trying to figure out is what is 3/5 or 3 parts of 35? And to figure this out, what I need to first do is I need to divide this tape diagram into fifths. My denominator is 5, so that means I need to break my line into 5 parts. So to do that, I'll just cut it up like this. So now I have 5 parts. Now, an easy way to help you figure out 3/5 is to first figure out what is just 1 part, and then I can figure out what 3 parts altogether would be. Now, if I want to figure out what this 1 part is going to equal, what I can do is I can think about, well, I have 35 altogether being divided by 5. So I can think about, well, what is 35 divided by 5? Well, I know that 35 divided by 5 equals 7, or you can think about it the opposite way. What 5 times what is 35? 5 times 7 is 35. And this 7 right here tells me how much 1 part of my tape diagram is. So 1 part is equal to 7, but I want to know how much is 3 parts of 7. So what I need to do is I need to add 7 plus 7 plus 7, or think of 7 times 3. So in this case, if I had 7 plus 7, that would be 14, and then 7 plus 7 again would be 21. So 3/5 of 35 is 21. And that's all you have to do to solve these problems. So just to go over it one quick time, I created a tape diagram to show 35. So I just drew a long rectangle and labeled that 35. I broke it into fifths because I am dividing by 5. And then I had to figure out what 1 part equals. I figured out what 1 part equals by taking my whole and dividing it by my denominator, or how many parts I divided my tape diagram into. And that gave me how much 1 part is. I then remembered that I need to figure out what 3 parts is equal to. So I took that 1 part and I either multiplied it by 3, or I just added that same number up 3 times to get my answer of 21. And that's all you have to do to solve these kinds of problems. I am going to set up the word problem for you guys to do next. And after that, I'm going to show you guys how to solve that one. If you want to try it on your own, you can. And then we'll keep moving on. All right, 5th grade. So I have your word problem up on the board now. So I'm going to read through this. I'm going to give you some information to help you solve this. And then if you think you can try to answer this on your own, go ahead and do that. And then I'll work on it as well. So the problem says, Aurelia buys 2 dozen roses. Of these roses, 3/4 are red and the rest are white. How many white roses did she buy? So I'm going to find the important information. So I know that she buys 2 dozen roses. And if you didn't know, 2 dozen is actually 24. Because 1 dozen is 12, so 2 dozen would be 24. Of these roses, 3/4 are reds, and the rest are white. And I need to figure out how many white roses did she buy. So in order to do that, I am basically trying to find first what 3/4 of 24 is, or I could figure out what 1/4 of 24 is. So you have kind of like 2 options to go through right now, because you can figure out what 3/4 of 24 is, because that would tell you how many reds she has. And then you can subtract from there. Or you could just simply figure out what 1/4 of 24 is, and that would give you the rest of the white roses. So I'm going to show you 3/4 of 24, and then how we can use that information to help us figure out the white roses. But you can do either way for your own work. So for 3/4 of 24, I'm just going to rewrite this off to the sides. What I need to do is I first need to create my tape diagram. So remember, I draw my long rectangle, and then I'm going to divide this rectangle, or sorry, that's a label of 24. And then since my denominator is 4, I need to break my model into fourths. So I'm going to do that now. And I know that I want to find out what this 3/4 equals. But in order to do that, I need to figure out this first part first. So I need to figure out what 1 unit is equal to in my tape diagram. So to do that, I'm going to figure out what is 24 divided by 4. And 24 divided by 4 equals 6. So I know that 1 unit in my tape diagram equals 6. Now, if I have to find out what 3/4 is now, then I could either add 6 plus 6 plus 6, or I can think of this as 6 times 3. I know that 6 times 3 is 18, so I can put in 18 here. And this 18 is not my final answer. This 18 just tells me how many red roses I have. You could also label this now as red roses if you need to, just some way to show you that those are red roses. So that means that this last box right here is where my white roses are going to be. And there's a couple of different ways that you can solve to figure out what this box is going to equal. I can either remember that 1 unit, 1 box equals 6, and that would give me my answer. Or I could do 24 minus 18, because I'm taking my whole amount minus the red roses to figure out how many white roses I have, and that would also give me 6. So you had a couple of options with this problem, but either way, if you got 6 as your final answer for the white roses, you got this one correct. Excellent job. So I'm going to set up the next word problem on the board, so just give me a second to do that. All right, 5th grade, so I have your next word problem up for you. So this problem says that Rosie had 17 yards of fabric. She used 1/3 of it to make a quilt. How much did she use? So this is a problem where it might get a little bit tricky because you are going to be working with fractions. So if you would like to work along with me on this one, you can. If not, you can go ahead and try this one on your own. I'm going to start working through this one now, though. So first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the important information. So 17 yards of fabric is important, and she used 1/3 of it. I then want to know, what am I trying to answer? And that is, how much did she use? So for this problem, again, I will be using that tape diagram. So I'm going to create that tape diagram. And basically what I'm trying to find is 1/3 of 17. I'm trying to figure out how much did she use. That 1/3 equals how much out of that 17. And to do this, I know that this entire tape diagram is equal to 17. And I need to now divide this tape diagram. So to divide this up, I look at my denominator of 3. And I know that I need to divide this tape diagram into thirds. I now need to figure out what 1 part is equal to. And thankfully, normally I have to find that 1 part and then try to figure out what it all equals up to when I add it together. But for this one, I just need to figure out 1/3. So if I figure out what this 1 part is, I will also get my answer. So it's a little bit easier. So I know that in the problems that I've done previously, I usually will take what the whole thing equals, so 17 in this case, and then I'll divide it by 3. And I can find that 1 part. I'm dividing it by 3, remember, because that's my denominator, and how many parts I split this tape diagram into. But the problem with this is I can't actually easily divide 17 by 3. So what I'm going to do is I can think of this as 2 ways. If you want to, you can set it up like this and create a mixed number by thinking about how many times can 3 go into 17, what's the remainder, and so on. Or you could do it as a standard algorithm. So I can set up 17 divided by 3 like this, and get my answer for my mixed number like this. So first, let's think about how many times can 3 go into 17. Well, I know that 3 times 6 is 18, so that's not going to work. But I could do 3 times 5, because 3 times 5 is 15. So that would be perfect. And then I do 17 minus 15, which gives me 2. Now remember, your standard algorithm gives you all the answers you need to help you get your mixed number. So this 5 up here, that is going to be my whole number. My 2 is my remainder, so that is my numerator, so that's a 2. And then this 3 is my denominator, that is a 3. So my final answer is going to be 5 and 2/3. So, and if I were to write this as my final answer for this word problem, she used 5 and 2/3 yards for her project. And that's all you have to do for this one. So even if you do get a number that normally you couldn't evenly divide, you can still set up a standard algorithm, get a mixed number, and get that to fill in your answer for. Now, I'm going to be setting up the next problem, which is a mystery number sort of problem. And then after that, we'll have one more word problem. So 1 second. All right, fifth grade. So these problems, I'm going to be calling them mystery number problems because what you're doing with these is this gives me 2/3 of a number is 8. What is the number? So I am trying to figure out now what the total is. So what does my total tape diagram equal? And all I have so far is just this part. So 2/3 or 2 of the 3 boxes in total equals 8. And I need to figure out what the whole tape diagram equals. And it's kind of a similar process to the problems we have been doing so far. So for example, I know that 2 of these 3 boxes equals 8. And what I need to figure out now is what does just 1 unit equal? And to figure that out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 8, and since there are 2 boxes here that make up that 2/3, I'm going to divide this 8 by 2 so I can figure out what just 1 box equals. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. And this 4 tells me that just 1 unit equals 4. And I can check my answer by putting a 4 in here and adding these 2/3 up together. 4 plus 4 is 8, so that does make sense. Remember, that is not what you're trying to answer. That's just going to help you get the answer. I'm still trying to figure out what does this entire tape diagram equal? Well, if I know that one part is 4, and I have another one part here, I also have another 1 part over here, and guess what? That also equals 4. So you have a couple of different options for solving for that question mark up there. You could either think of 4 plus 4 plus 4, which gives you 12, or you could think of this as 4 times 3, which also gives you 12, and 12 would be my mystery number. And that is all you have to do to solve these problems. So again, for these problems, what you're going to do is you would draw a tape diagram. It's asking you 2/3 of a number is 8. What is the number? You would want your rectangle, and then you would want to label 2/3 as 8. So 2 of the 3 boxes are 8. And then you have to find the value of 1 unit, which in this case was 4 because I did 8 divided by 2. I got my answer of 4, and then I can either label the rest of the boxes or just know that I could do 4 times 3 and get my final answer of 12. We have one last word problem to do, and then we will move on to the directions for the homework set and problem sets. So 1 second again. All right, fifth grade. So our last problem for today is one more word problem, and this problem wants us to solve for a amount of money. So this says Tiffany spent 4/7 of her money on a bear. If the bear cost $24, how much did she have at first? So this problem is actually another mystery number kind of problem. So I am going to be having just a part, and then I need to figure out what the whole is. So to do this, I am going to create a tape diagram. Make sure you have a lot of space on this one. And I know that if I have 4/7, that means that my tape diagram is being split into 7. So I'm going to do that right now. The denominator always tells you what your tape diagram should be split into. And what I need to do now is I need to label 4 of these 7s as $24 because she spent 4/7 of her money, and that 4/7 equal $24. What I don't know yet is how much money she had to begin with. Now to do this, remember, I need to figure out what one of these parts is going to equal so I can figure out the total. And to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this $24 and I'm going to divide it by the 4 boxes that I see here. So very similar to the last problem where I had this part equaled 8 and there was 2 boxes, so I did 8 divided by 2. It's the same process, except I'm taking this 24 and I'm dividing it by the 4 boxes here. So I know that 24 divided by 4 equals 6. So I know that 1 part equals 6. Now, that's not what I needed to find out, though. I need to figure out what this whole thing is equal to. So if my denominator is 7, that means I have 7 total parts. If 1 part equals 6, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that 1 part of 6 and I'm going to multiply it by 7. So I have 6 parts, or sorry, I have 1 part that equals 6 times 7 in total, which gives me 42. If you really wanted to, you could count up by 6s until you get to your last part, or you could just do 6 times 7, which equals 42, which gives me my final answer, $42. That's how much money she started with. For your homework tonight, what you're going to be doing is number 1, A through H, and then word problem 2A. That's all you have to do tonight. And please make sure that you're doing lesson 7 today. Do not do one of the other lessons. So you can go ahead and put your homework in your backpack now and make sure you label what problems that we are doing. Then for the problem set in class, you guys are going to do 1, A through H, so basically that whole first page. And then word problem 2A and 2C. So make sure you label those correctly and go ahead and get started. So you guys did an awesome job today.